Arthur Schopenhauer, a leading 19th-century German philosopher, is celebrated for his deep insights into human existence and the quest for a meaningful life. His philosophy is anchored in the reflection on human suffering and the pursuit of genuine contentment. Schopenhauer's ideas have made a lasting impact on existential thought. In this video, we explore his teachings with a particular focus on 6 key aspects of life he believed were crucial for attaining inner peace. As we journey through his philosophy, we will uncover the wisdom he offers to those striving for a more peaceful and purposeful life. 1. Desire. Schopenhauer recognized desire as a powerful motivating force capable of shaping decisions and actions. However, he also saw desire as a double-edged sword, often leading to discontent and suffering. He believed that desires are insatiable by nature, creating a cycle where people strive to fulfill them, but once achieved, new desires arise, preventing lasting satisfaction. This perpetual cycle of wanting and never truly satisfying desires contributes to a sense of unease and dissatisfaction in life. Schopenhauer argued that desires are often irrational, stemming from a feeling of lack or incompleteness within individuals. This sense of deficiency leads people to believe that acquiring something external will fill the void and bring happiness. However, once the desired object is obtained, the initial feeling of satisfaction is temporary, giving way to new desires and perpetuating the cycle of discontent. In his work The World as Will and Representation, Schopenhauer provides several examples that show the harmful effects of unchecked desires. He speaks about how material possessions, wealth, power, and even relationships often fail to bring lasting satisfaction, leaving people trapped in a constant search for the next thing to fulfill their desires. Schopenhauer's solution to the suffering caused by desires involves cultivating contentment through self-awareness and mindfulness. By becoming aware of the insatiable nature of desires and the cycle they create, people can learn to detach from the constant pursuit of external gratification. This self-awareness allows them to find internal contentment by appreciating the present moment rather than being driven solely by desires. 2. Ego. The ego is a psychological construct that forms one's sense of self-identity and separates individuals from the external world and others. It encompasses thoughts, emotions, and personal experiences that contribute to a distinct sense of self. Schopenhauer believed that while the ego provided a sense of identity, it also acted as a barrier that isolated individuals from each other. This isolation resulted from the ego's tendency to emphasize differences rather than similarities, leading to conflicts and competition for resources, recognition, and superiority. According to Schopenhauer, the ego-driven pursuit of personal benefits, such as accumulating wealth, power, and social status, often led to suffering and dissatisfaction. This is because the relentless pursuit of self-interest can create an endless cycle of dissatisfaction, as the ego always seeks more and better. Schopenhauer advocated transcending the ego through self-awareness and empathy. By becoming aware of the ego's limitations and biases, individuals can develop a broader perspective. Empathy allows them to understand the experiences and feelings of others, fostering a deeper connection that goes beyond the confines of the ego. Examples of ego-driven behavior abound in personal relationships and society. In relationships, ego-driven conflicts may arise when individuals prioritize their own interests over the well-being of others. In society, ego-driven competition often leads to inequality and a lack of cooperation. These real-world scenarios illustrate Schopenhauer's point about the negative consequences of ego-driven behavior on both personal and collective levels. 3. Attachment. Attachment refers to the emotional connection and dependency individuals develop towards people, objects, experiences, or outcomes in their lives, often arising from a desire for security, happiness, and a sense of identity. Schopenhauer held that attachment leads to suffering because everything in life is impermanent. People, possessions, and situations change or eventually come to an end. When individuals form strong attachments, they predispose themselves to pain and disappointment when those attachments are lost or change, as inevitably happens. Schopenhauer pointed out that the pleasure derived from attachments is often temporary and fleeting, while the pain of losing those attachments can be intense and long-lasting. The joy experienced from possessions or relationships rarely compares to the depth of sadness felt when they are lost. Schopenhauer provided examples in his works to illustrate the emotional turmoil caused by attachment, describing how people often experience distress and despair when their attachments are interrupted or lost. He believed that understanding the inherent suffering in attachment could lead individuals to a more enlightened perspective. Schopenhauer introduced the concept of non-attachment as a way to reduce suffering. Non-attachment involves forming relationships and connections while maintaining emotional detachment and resilience. By recognizing the impermanence of all things and cultivating a mindset of non-attachment, individuals can find greater emotional stability and acceptance in the face of change and loss. 4. Comparison. Comparison is a psychological tendency in which people evaluate themselves in relation to others or external standards. It often influences self-esteem by leading individuals to assess their worth based on how they compare to others. Schopenhauer believed that constant comparison to others generates envy and discontent. When people measure themselves against those they perceive as more successful or fortunate, they often feel inadequate or dissatisfied with their own circumstances. Schopenhauer observed that measuring self-worth solely by external standards or the achievements of others can be harmful. This approach sets up a perpetual cycle of dissatisfaction, as there will always be someone who seems to be doing better, fostering feelings of insufficiency. Examples from literature and real life can illustrate the damage caused by constant comparison. Stories of characters driven to extreme measures due to envy or feelings of inferiority highlight the negative impact of comparison on mental well-being and life choices. Schopenhauer's alternative approach involves self-acceptance and the pursuit of intrinsic goals. Instead of seeking external validation, individuals focus on their own growth and fulfillment. This shift fosters a sense of satisfaction and healthier self-esteem, as one's worth is determined by personal progress and values rather than external standards. Schopenhauer emphasized that comparison has the potential to generate envy, discontent, and a negative self-image. By focusing on self-acceptance and intrinsic goals, people can free themselves from the cycle of comparison, cultivating a more positive perception of themselves and a more authentic and fulfilling life. 5. Anger and resentment. Anger is a strong emotional reaction to perceived injustices or provocations, often accompanied by feelings of irritation and frustration. Resentment, on the other hand, is a lingering feeling of bitterness or indignation resulting from past offenses. Schopenhauer's perspective is that harboring anger and resentment does more harm to the person holding on to these emotions than to those at whom they are directed. The negative effects of these emotions, such as stress, anxiety, and damaged relationships, have a greater impact on the individual's mental and emotional well-being. The long-term effects of holding on to anger and resentment are detrimental both psychologically and physiologically. Psychologically, these emotions can lead to increased stress, depression, and decreased overall life satisfaction. Physiologically, chronic anger and resentment can result in elevated blood pressure, a weakened immune system, and heart-related issues. Real-life examples or historical anecdotes can highlight the harmful effects of unresolved anger and resentment. Stories of people whose lives were negatively impacted by their inability to let go of these emotions can illustrate their corrosive impact on mental, emotional, and even physical health. Schopenhauer proposed forgiveness as a remedy for achieving inner peace and emotional well-being. By releasing anger and resentment, individuals free themselves from the weight of negative emotions. Forgiveness is a way to let go of the hold these emotions have on the psyche, allowing for healing and personal growth. In summary, Schopenhauer's views on anger and resentment emphasize their harmful effects on individual well-being. By recognizing the psychological and physiological costs and exploring the power of forgiveness, individuals can take steps toward achieving inner peace and emotional well-being. 6. Unrealistic expectations. Expectations are beliefs or assumptions that people hold about how events, situations, or people should unfold. They influence perceptions, emotions, and behaviors, shaping personal experiences and interactions. Schopenhauer argued that setting high and unrealistic expectations often leads to disappointment and dissatisfaction. When reality fails to meet these elevated standards, individuals are more likely to experience frustration and negative emotions. Schopenhauer noted that the cycle of high expectations and disillusionment is often fueled by cognitive biases, social pressures, and a tendency to project ideals onto reality. People tend to focus on ideal scenarios while ignoring potential obstacles, which contributes to disappointment when things do not go as planned. Examples from literature, history, or personal stories can illustrate the consequences of this. These stories could show how the pursuit of unattainable goals often leads to dissatisfaction, unfulfillment, and unnecessary suffering. Throughout this journey into the profound ideas of Arthur Schopenhauer, we have explored the intricate web of human emotions and behaviors that often lead to suffering and dissatisfaction. From the unquenchable thirst of desire to the isolating tendencies of the ego, from the chains of attachment to the traps of comparison, and the corrosive power of anger, resentment, and unrealistic expectations. Schopenhauer's teachings have provided us with a mirror to reflect on our own lives. As you reflect on the 6 aspects he urges us to eliminate, take a moment to look inward and consider their presence in your own journey. Reflect on the times when desires overshadowed satisfaction, when the ego hindered connection, when attachment led to sorrow, when comparison stifled self-worth, when anger and resentment clouded clarity, and when unrealistic expectations bred disappointment. To conclude, allow me to leave you with a passage from Schopenhauer's writings that encapsulates the essence of this journey. The greatest achievements of the human mind are born from those anguishing moments, for it is only in them that the spark of genius takes shape. These words remind us that within our struggles lies the potential for growth, understanding, and ultimately, the path toward a more serene existence. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of Schopenhauer's philosophy. May his timeless wisdom guide us toward greater self-awareness, empathy, and the pursuit of true inner peace.